Welcome to Ambassador's Daily Banquet. I am God's servant David F. Nwefulu. Prepare your heart for fresh revelation that will empower your faith.
We're jumping into the core principles from a devotional text called Leading with Integrity. And it really focuses on one powerful, timeless idea about what makes a leader truly effective. So let's kick things off with a big question. When you think of a leader, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it their powerful speeches, their fancy title, their ability to give orders? Well, this source asks us to really think about what the single most powerful tool in a leader's toolbox actually is. And you know what? The answer this text gives is, well, it's incredibly simple, but also really deep. It argues that the biggest influence a leader has doesn't come from what they say, but from what they do. It's not about instruction. It's all about example. And that's the big idea we're going to unpack today. Okay, so that brings us to our first section. The whole philosophy here is built on this one foundation, that genuine influence, the kind that actually sticks, flows directly from your personal integrity. It's about who you are, not just what you say you are. So the source really breaks this down into two completely different styles of leading. On one side, you've got leadership by instruction. This is all based on your position, your title. It's about telling people what to do. But then you have leadership by example. And that's rooted in your character, your conduct. The focus completely shifts from just words and commands to consistent, observable actions. And this really gets to the heart of how people work, right? I mean, think about it in your own life. You're probably way more influenced by someone whose actions you respect than by someone who just talks a good game. The source makes this point really clear. People are always watching, and what they see makes a much deeper impression than what they just hear. All right, so let's dig a little deeper here. The source grounds this whole philosophy in a specific biblical context, presenting it as a practical guide for what it calls believers. This is the verse right here that the text really hinges on. It's from a letter attributed to the Apostle Paul, writing to this young leader named Timothy. And the message is super direct. He's basically saying, hey, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young. Instead, you need to be the model, the example for everyone else to follow. So how do you actually do that? How do you become that example? Well, the text breaks it down into these 6 key areas. It's not just one thing, it's the whole package. A leader should be a model in their word, so what they say, in their conversation, which means their overall behavior, in charity or love for others, and then in their spirit, their faith, and their purity. It's a complete picture of what integrity looks like in action. So if that's the blueprint, who does the source point to as the perfect, finished product? This brings us to what the text calls the ultimate leadership model. And the devotional is crystal clear on this. It holds up the example of Jesus as the absolute gold standard for this style of leadership. The argument is that he didn't just teach these principles, he actually lived them out perfectly. And the source pulls out some really specific qualities from this model that leaders are meant to strive for. Things like humility, patience, compassion, obedience to a higher purpose, having moral courage, and just being absolutely faithful. Okay, so what's the point of all this? What's the real impact when a leader actually lives this way? The source suggests it's a process, one that takes people from just watching a leader to actually internalizing those same values for themselves. Well, according to the text, when a leader consistently lives out what they teach, it sets off this powerful chain reaction. First, it builds credibility and trust, and that's the bedrock of any healthy team, right? It also promotes accountability because the leader is holding themselves to the same standard. The source says this ultimately inspires people to grow and empowers them to develop their own integrity, creating this amazing environment where positive influence can just flourish. So when you boil it all down, it's really about legacy. The impact of a leader who leads by example, according to this text, isn't just about getting things done in the short term. It's about building something that lasts, a legacy of character and integrity that keeps influencing people long after the leader's words have faded. And that naturally brings us to the final section of the devotional. See, it's not just a bunch of ideas on a page. It wraps up with a very direct call to action, inviting readers to actually apply these principles in their own lives. The source lays out 3 main ways it encourages its community to get involved and put these principles into practice. It suggests offering spiritual support as a prayer partner, giving your time and skills as a volunteer missionary, or providing financial support as a kingdom investor. These are shown as the concrete ways to help move the vision forward. And really, the final takeaway message just brings everything full circle. It's a call for a personal commitment, a promise to yourself to consciously line up what you say with what you do, to truly live out these principles of integrity and leadership by example. And that leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Something that goes way beyond this specific text and applies to all of us, no matter what we do. In your work, in your family, in any field. What does it truly mean to close that gap between what you say and what you do? And just imagine the kind of influence you...
Thank you for watching. Please share, like, and comment. Your host, God7, David F. Wafulu.